Okay, I am ready to come out here. I am ready to embarrass myself in a real money fantasy basketball draft. Now, y'all know that 100% football is my specialty here, but I love playing fantasy basketball. B, I have a fantasy basketball listener league that we need to prepare for on Sunday. So, what I'm going to do is we're going to go over to Underdog Fantasy. In my opinion, the best way to get ready for your fantasy basketball draft this season is by going over and hopping in a draft on Underdog Fantasy. A big reason for this is the fact that on Underdog Fantasy, all of these are real money fantasy basketball drafts. You're not going to see me getting in a mock draft right now. This is a real money draft. And yeah, I mean, what you can do is when you make a $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy, you can go through, you can get in some practice drafts. What is so good about getting in a real money fantasy basketball draft is people are actually going to stick around for the entire thing. There's nothing worse than hopping in a quote unquote mock draft. Then all of a sudden you're looking around and you're the only person in there. Everybody else is on auto pick and you're just having nothing in terms of allowing you to prepare for your actual league. So if you hop into a $5 draft here on Underdog Fantasy, what is also so great about this is you do not have to submit your starting lineup throughout the season. That is automatically done for you. And at the same time, there are no waivers, so there are no time commitments. So I'm going to be completely honest here. This is our first fantasy basketball draft of the season. This can get ugly. I may just flat out embarrass myself. And another reason I really wanted to do this is because it looks like Underdog Fantasy, they have 12 team leagues here. But what is so great about Underdog Fantasy is you play in your 12 team league throughout the entire season. By the time we get to the fantasy basketball playoffs, then the top two members in that 12 team league then advance to the following round. And then I believe, at least in football, there are 3 rounds. I don't know if there are 3 or 4 in Underdog Fantasy's basketball contest, but you progress through the rounds until you actually get to the last one where there's a $50,000 prize up for grabs at the very top. Now, keep in mind here that, the chances of you actually getting that are very small, but what looks to be great is Underdog Fantasy may not fill this entire tournament. And if they don't fill this entire tournament, what that's going to mean for everybody is that means no, the guaranteed prizes, they stay the same. They're not getting smaller at all, but the people fighting for those guaranteed prizes, they're a lot less. So if they're going to be paying out in a ladder all the way to the top, it's essentially just free money for the taking, where if this doesn't fill Underdog Fantasy, they're going to have to be pumping money into the league pot. So even if I'm coming out here and I'm going, okay, well, maybe I'm just an average drafter, maybe I'm just a slightly below average. If Underdog Fantasy is having to throw extra money into the pot, that's just giving me a way better chance of actually being profitable. So make sure y'all go check out Underdog Fantasy. You can find the link in the live chat right now. You can also find it in the description of the video. You can find it in the comment section. And if you deposit $10 on Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, you support this channel more than you would ever believe. You get our 2021 Fantasy Basketball Draft Guide. All you have to do is deposit $10 with promo code FLOCK. Send a DM to Fantasy Nudes and Brews on Twitter with the email you signed up for. They'd be happy to get you that draft guide ASAP. And yeah, it looks like there are 4 spots left in this draft. Let's go over. Let's show off this draft room. Just sent that link out in the live chat. If you are already signed up for Underdog Fantasy, go join this ASAP so we can get this going. I'd imagine that it doesn't take that long to get this filled. And oh my gosh, this is going to be exciting. If we're going to be looking at the scoring for this, that's actually one thing that I definitely should cover really quick for everybody. If you're going to look at the scoring, okay, here's the prize pool. Of course, you get money for winning your 12-team league. You get money for getting second in your 12-team league. But what's more exciting is these prizes at the top that it looks like Underdog Fantasy is probably going to have to pump money into. But if we're going to be looking at the scoring here, you get 1 point for every point scored. You actually get 3 points for a block. You get 3 points for a steal. You get minus a point for a turnover, a 1.5 for an assist, and 1.2 points for a rebound. So it's a traditional points league. You're going to be starting 2 guards, 2 wings, 1 big, 1 flex, and then they're going to be 10 bench at the same time. Remember, you do not have a waiver wire. Remember, you are not actually submitting your starting lineup throughout the season. So what is so great about Underdog Fantasy is you can go in and you can get in 3 or 4 practice drafts in these real money leagues. You're going to be a lot more prepared than anybody else in your own league. And to go along with this, you're not going to have any time commitment throughout the season where you can actually just focus in on your primary league with your friends here. So yeah, let's go through and let's get into some of these drafts, because I'm going to be honest, with the amount of fantasy basketball drafts that I'm going to be in this year, I'm not going to be able to be in that much just because I'm not going to have the time for it. I mean, fantasy basketball, it's a massive time commitment, but Underdog Fantasy, I mean, the only thing that they are taking is my next probably 45 minutes to get this draft going. Okay, so one thing that I do want to discuss is when you're only having to start one big, I would imagine that this is going to be something that affects us in terms of drafting at the very top. If we're going to be looking to go with the wing, if we're going to be looking to go with the guard. I mean, obviously, Jokic still going 1 overall. Let's see where we're picking. We are picking at 105. We got a familiar name in this live draft. We got Golf for Life. Happy to have you out here. Don't know if you got in the draft because we were in it, but yeah, I don't think we recognize any of the other names at the top. Let's switch this over as well so everybody can see this. And yeah, okay, I completely forgot that we were going to have to just rearrange everything here since we're streaming on the Fantasy Basketball channel, not the Fantasy Football channel. Nothing is optimized right now, but please forgive me for that. We're going to try to work with what we got here. I can get another one of these drafts going tomorrow. I can get another one going the next day if y'all really enjoy these. So make sure you go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comment section if you want to see more of these fantasy basketball drafts. And yeah, so we are going to be going through 12 teams, 16 rounds here. We're going to go pretty deep. I can guarantee you, guaranteed, I'm going to embarrass myself at some point in this draft. The main way I'm going to be drafting here is I actually went to #basketball.com. I imported the scoring here for Underdog Fantasy, and I'm going to be picking based on their projections. Mainly, of course, we're going to be taking into account ADP that we have for these players. Giannis goes 1. You actually have Nikola Jokic falling to 2. Doncic going 3. Okay, so James Harden, obviously, this is going to be a riser whenever you have the Kyrie Irving situation right now. James Harden does go right before us. So if we're going to be looking at this, I think with the Kyrie Irving situation, I would not have done this if we know that Kyrie's going to be playing guaranteed. I think that Karl Anthony Towns is 100% going to be the player that you would prefer in a vacuum. I'm really considering Durant here because with Kevin Durant, he's going to be playing at a position that I think we need to go a little bit deeper at. We're going to go Kevin Durant with the uncertainty around Kyrie Irving. Please let me know what you think about that selection. Let me know because obviously, I mean, Cat there was very appealing, but I just think in a league where we only have to have one big week in and week out, we need to have multiple wings. I think we can possibly try to find some bigs later on, some guys that can give us blocks because keep in mind, I mean, if you're getting 3 points for a block here, I think that's going to be something that 100% affects how we are viewing this. Now you have Jason Tatum at the 108. Okay, so at this point, whenever we take Kevin Durant, I think on the way back in the second round, we're probably going to be looking to go with a guard if we can. I mean, I'm personally not going to be wanting to reach just given a certain position. So I will try to take the best player available. I still think we probably want to be passing on the bigs. Okay, Delexis in the live chat says, no, Durant is a fade for me, Loki. Yeah, with Durant, I think that there are clear concerns maybe you have with injuries, but I mean, with how efficient this offense was last season, I mean, they were on pace at one point to be the most efficient NBA offense that we had ever seen. I think we're just going to take him. And oh my gosh, got Zion Williamson at the 201. I'm going to be honest here. By no means, I don't want to sit here and pretend that I know everything. I don't want to sit here and pretend that I'm an expert, but Zion Williamson at the 201. I mean, that seems pretty egregious when you can get Paul George 1 pick later. I mean, personally, I would 100% be going with Paul George over Zion Williamson. I would love to know your opinion because, like I said, I'm not sitting here trying to pretend that I'm a genius when it comes to fantasy basketball. I'm sitting here preparing for my listener league that we got to do because I need to make sure I'm not embarrassing myself in that. So I can embarrass myself in this draft as long as it means that we are going to be better later on. Okay, so now let's see Russell Westbrook at the 203. Westbrook, honestly, I know that the projections are there. I don't think we would be taking him just because I'm not a Westbrook fan. Randall going as well. Okay, so honestly, kind of making me feel good here that we decided to go with Kevin Durant over Cat in the first round. Just seeing how we're seeing a couple of these other bigs fall. Like we potentially can see Anthony Davis making it back to us with our next selection here. So now if LaMelo... I mean, if this is a player that lives up to his projections with the steals he would have, I guess he's slightly intriguing knowing that he can get 3 points per steal here. Bam Adebayo going. So do we want Sabonis? Okay, so with Sabonis, this is a player that if we're going to be looking at #fantasy basketball on who they have as the best player, they actually do not have him anywhere close to this range. They do have LaMelo, I actually believe, at the top of this list. It looks like they're putting LaMelo there mainly because of the amount of steals he projects to get. Yeah, I think we're going to go with LaMelo Ball. Keep in mind, we're working out these projections. Right now, I'm wanting to load up on guards. I'm wanting to load up on wings. And whenever we're getting 3 points per steal, right now, #basketball.com actually has LaMelo Ball projected for 1.8 steals a game. That would be equivalent to almost 6 points a game just off of steals alone. Obviously, with his big frame, he's going to be getting points, going to be getting assists, going to be getting rebounds at the same time. So, yeah, let me know what y'all think of that LaMelo Ball selection at the 208. I know that seems a little bit rich, but I think just given the unique scoring format that this league is, maybe that's the correct decision. I would love to know your opinion, though. Okay. So now Avery says, had my draft 2 days ago and took Zion before the injury news came out. Look where Zion went in this draft. Zion literally went at the 201 here. Okay. So now we had Sabonis, Nikola Vucevic going at the 210, Zach LaVine at the 211. Because I wonder if you're going to be taking like Nikola Jokic in the first. Like, would you even be able to take a big in the second round, knowing that you only need to start one? Of course, you have a flex as well. You have, I don't know if you're going to call it a flex utility. Underdog Fantasy calls it a flex. I mean, obviously, everybody kind of knows what that is. So I guess you could, in theory, take two. I mean, I just personally think it would probably be a bad call. I mean, here you do have Shafir coming out and taking Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Davis in the first and second round. Looks like a lot of other people are taking a little more of a balanced approach. I mean, here you have the first team golfer live. It goes Giannis, De'Aaron Fox. We take Kevin Durant, LaMelo Ball. Then you get Stephen Curry, Julius Randle. And then I think this is by far and away my favorite start, going Damian Lillard and Paul George at the 1-2 turn. I mean, especially with the uncertainty around Kawhi Leonard at the moment, I think Paul George just looks like a fantastic selection there. Okay. So now let's switch this back around. So Donovan Mitchell, keep in mind this will be a player scoring a considerable amount of points. Like, let me pull up the projections on what we have from #basketball.com. I think we have a player that clearly stands out to us as someone that we're going to have to go to. I mean, if these projections are anything close to being accurate, I mean, right now he looks like one of the best values on the board. So you got Ja Morant going at the 303. And I think since we started balanced, if I was feeling a little more comfortable about my fantasy basketball draft strategy at this point in the season, I think I'd be a little more willing to just go and just continue to hammer in who we perceived to be the best player available regardless of position. But when that's not going to be the case, when I'm a little bit more concerned of what we are going to be doing later on in the draft, I think that right now I'm just going to play it out and take a balanced approach. We're going to take Rudy Gobert here. Now, keep in mind, this is someone who had 190 blocks in 2020. He essentially had that same mark in 2018 as well. #basketball.com currently has him projected to see almost 3 blocks a game. If he can get to 3 blocks a game, just say he's at 2.7 blocks a game, that's close to 9 points just off the blocks alone. Then obviously he's going to have the rebounds. Obviously, he'll have some points scored at the same time. So let me know what y'all think about that. But I think going with like a big conversation that we need to have is, in this format, are we going to prefer the combination of Kevin Durant and Rudy Gobert, or would we prefer the combination of Karl Anthony Towns and Brandon Ingram? I mean, not going to lie, Karl Anthony Towns, Brandon Ingram stack, that looks pretty appealing. Maybe we made a mistake going KD in the first instead of Karl Anthony Towns. Then we could have just gotten a wing down here in the third. I just think that with Rudy Gobert here, this is going to be a player that, I mean, if these projections are correct, if the scoring's correct at the same time, the blocks should be there, and that should be very exciting. Now, if we're going to be looking at some other teams, Flashman has taken a very balanced approach, just as we have. He has Trae Young, Bam Adebayo, and Jimmy Butler. I think Butler can be appealing if you're just going to be looking at someone that literally is not going to be missing out. I hate to use the word category because obviously this is not a category format, but I mean, he's going to be projected for over 20 points a game. He's going to have 5 rebounds, 4 assists. I mean, he's going to have about 2 steals a game at the same time. Keep in mind, whenever we're looking at those steals, it's going to be a very big deal. You got Michael Porter Jr. going at the 311. This is a fantastic team so far out of the 111. God, I really like this team. Okay, so now we're going to have to be probably looking at the player list a lot sooner than we would have in a fantasy football draft, because obviously in a fantasy football draft, I mean, I pretty much know exactly how the board's going to fall. Here, I'm flying blind right now. We have no idea what's going on. This is like the number one way to prepare, like we've already discussed for that listener league. Hopefully we get some solid draft strategy out of this. Hopefully we can go through and just feel a little more comfortable for our draft on Sunday. You got DeMar DeRozan at the 403. So, yeah, you have a lot of these wings getting soaked up. Maybe it wasn't the best call for us to go Rudy Gobert. Maybe getting like Miles Turner a little bit later on would have been better. Just knowing that, I mean, like we already kind of identified at the top of the draft, whenever you only have to start one big, I mean, these wings, they're going to be extremely valuable. You already see them kind of just having that run going off the board right now. So now, Tobias Harris, Clint Capella, Pascal Siakam. I mean, Ben Simmons here. Ben Simmons just seems egregious to go with Ben Simmons. He does go at the 406. I mean, the projections on him are just going to be so shaky where you really don't know what you're going to be getting. So if we're going to be looking at Tobias Harris, I mean, this is someone that he's going to give you points, rebounds, assists. I think that Tobias Harris, whenever we're most likely going to be needing a wing here, probably can help us out a considerable amount. Let me look at what we got from Siakam. So Siakam, obviously, 900. I say let's just take the certainty. Let's just go with Tobias Harris here. Please let me know what y'all think of that. Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham's all the way up here in ADP. Ooh, people are excited about Cade. Oh my gosh. Maybe that's something we need to look into a little bit more. I mean, if we're going to be looking at the projections, I think yes, he has a long future ahead of him. Yes, he has a bright future ahead of him, but he's 19 years old. Taking over someone like John Collins, I think that would be very egregious. Now, you have John Collins at the 409, Chris Paul at the 410. Okay, Lonzo at the 411. Let me see the projections on Lonzo. I know that Lonzo is going to be a player that you can expect to get a decent amount of steals. So, yeah, he's going to have close to 6 assists a game as well this season. Interesting. Clint Capella projected out very nicely in this format just because he is going to get close to 15 rebounds a game, 15 points, 2 blocks. I mean, just off of that alone, this is someone that you could easily see getting close to 40. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, Clint Capella, great pick at the 412. Great pick with Clint Capella. I think that this is probably my favorite start of the draft so far. My favorite start of the draft either comes out from Golf for Life or it's going to come from the 111 here. I mean, the 111 really, I mean, you can see that they are passing on those bigs. And whenever you see someone on Underdog Fantasy that has this little experience badge next to him, usually this means they know what they're doing. Usually this means they've gotten in like 500 plus drafts. So if that's going to be the case, I think we probably have to look at the fact that they have decided to pass on bigs. I mean, pretty much every chance that they've had. You could have seen them taking DeAndre Ayton at the 402, yet they decided to take DeJounte Murray instead. Really interesting here. Jeremy Grant going at the 501. Yeah, okay, so Deluxes says if we would have picked up a wing with that last round, we could have gone Clint Capella. I think you're right. I think the play was probably to go with Brandon Ingram at the 305, then get Clint Capella falling back in our lap at the 408. Just like I said, I mean, we didn't expect that we had this massive run on wings and guards here. So let's pull up what we're going to have with our next pick. Okay, let me look up what we have. Oh, we only have 30 seconds on the clock. Okay, here. So if you're going to be looking at McCollum, this is a player, honestly, in this format, I really don't want McCollum. Let's take OG and Anunoby. I mean, here, if you're going to be looking at Anunoby, at least this is someone that can give us some steals. I mean, right now they have him projected for a steal and a half. Obviously, we know the points. We know the rebounds are going to be there at the same time. I just think the problem is if we're going to be going with CJ McCollum, I mean, in this format in particular, whenever you have such a premium being set on those steals and blocks, I mean, he's not going to total a steal block and a half. I mean, that's not going to even be in the range of outcomes for him. Yeah, we're going to add on another wing. Keep in mind, we have to start 2 wings every single week in this league. And we have the utility, the flex, whatever you want to call it here. So I think that we have officially filled out a starting 5. I mean, now we have Kevin Durant, Tobias Harris, OG Anunoby at wing. I mean, we also have at guard LaMelo Ball. We have at big Rudy Gobert. And I apologize, we actually need one more guard to get this going. Of course, that's not going to be the number one priority. We can continue to just take best player available. I like the idea of building around wings at this point. But yeah, let me know what y'all think of that last selection. Okay, so now let's scroll down. You get some more guards going off. So maybe we should have gone in the direction of taking a guard here. Someone like D'Angelo Russell. Okay, I'm going to be very interested to see what JJ Journey does, because this is someone that clearly has the experience. And please let me know in the comment section. Let me know by dropping a like on the live stream, by subscribing to the channel, or most importantly, by going and using promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy so you can get in some practice drafts on your own. Let me know if y'all want to see more of these drafts. I mean, we are going to be going through and getting a listener league on Sunday, so I want to make sure that we are prepared for that. Now, Spencer Dinwiddie goes at the 601, Keldon Johnson at the 602. Okay, so honestly, I think at this point, we want to see some wings go off the board. I mean, we need guards to fall to us. We can't be in a position where all of a sudden we get boxed out of guards, and you already have someone like Kyle Lowry going at the 603. So yeah, we just completely botched this. Colin Sexton at the 604. We misread the room. The pick was 100% to go with the guard there at the 505, not a wing. Oh my gosh, that was a pretty bad selection. Karis LeVert at the 605. Let's pull this back around. Okay, so obviously if we're looking at guards, can't go Kyrie. One thing I would discuss with Kyrie Irving is, while this is a player that his floor is literally 0, remember the contest we're playing in. Remember the fact that if you actually have the best team and it's not even close, by the time we get to the fantasy basketball playoffs, there's $50,000 up top. I mean, this is a large field tournament. So you are not just trying to win your 12-team league. I mean, if you win your 12-team league, yes, you get paid. But more importantly, I think it's definitely a spot where we need to be just looking for the highest upside possible so we can try to dominate in that tournament. So I think Kyrie is actually, I know right now Kyrie is not playing. Trust me, I understand. You don't have to come out here and you don't have to tell me that. But I think if we're just looking at this through the overall context, that if we're going to win the $50,000 on top, it probably is a good idea to just shoot for highest ceiling available. So we're going to make a selection that I would not make in a regular league. We are not drafting Kyrie Irving here in a regular league. Of course, you're not drafting a player who's not going to play, essentially. But just say, what's the realistic chance that Kyrie Irving does play this season? Whether you think that's 10%, whether you think that's 50%, whether you think that's 75%. I mean, anywhere in that range. What we are trying to accomplish here is we are trying to go through and build the highest ceiling team possible. So if 10% of the time Kyrie Irving does play this season, which honestly I think that's definitely undershooting it. I mean, that still will be a profitable selection, just knowing that if we get to the fantasy basketball playoffs, we'll have a higher ceiling on this roster in particular than any other one. So yeah, I understand that in a regular fantasy basketball draft, that is a horrendous pick. You do not need to tell me that whatsoever. But on a $5 buy-in, when we're just trying to get the highest ceiling possible, I think might as well just go through, might as well just try to chase that high ceiling. Like I said before we started this draft, I know we're going to embarrass ourselves out here. Okay, so now let's go see Gordon Hayward at the 612. Let's move this back over. God dang, I need to stop doing that. On our fantasy football channel, we have the layouts and a little bit of a different area whenever we go through and stream. Okay, so if we're going to look at Terry Rozier, the problem with Rozier here is this is a player that, is really not going to give you any elite production in any given category. Also we'll have close to 2 turnovers a game. Jarrett Allen is really intriguing, just in that if you're looking at Jarrett Allen, first off, this is a player that went to the University of Texas, so clearly he's very smart. And at the same time, we know that the blocks are going to be there. But in this format in particular, it makes no sense for him to be this slow. It makes no sense for Miles Turner to be going in the 7th round. Now, this is something that I'm actually confident in saying, because if you're looking at projections right now, you have projections for Miles Turner at 3 blocks a game, 12.5 points, 6.5 rebounds. I know that the points, I know the rebounds aren't great, but if he can get to the block number that he was at last year, this is a player that has a higher ceiling than really anybody else in this range, knowing that you were getting 3 points per block. If you're getting 3 points per block here, this is almost a no-brainer at the 705. We're going to be taking him as our second big, because 3 points a block, if he's averaging 3 blocks a game, that's an additional 9 points per game that you're seeing added on to him. Any other player in this range, I mean, Aaron Gordon, obviously with Aaron Gordon, this is someone that was really good down the stretch this past season. But at the same time, I mean, this is someone that's not going to be really giving you blocks. He's not really going to be giving you that many steals either. Jarrett Allen at the 709, Jaren Jackson at the, oh my gosh, talk about Jaren Jackson, someone that we were waiting on all season for last year, and clearly that never played out. Jalen Suggs, love seeing Jalen Suggs there. Derek White. Okay, so JJ Ernie here, building around Kristaps Porzingis as his one big. Okay, so that is 100%. It's 100%. Something we need to make sure we're noting because this player here definitely knows what he is doing. Okay, so let's move this over this direction. Sadiq Bey at the 712, Daniel Gafford at the 801, Mikal Bridges at the 802. I really like that Mikal Bridges pick as well. Maybe it's just recency bias and actually seeing the Suns make a run. I'm not going to lie, we were definitely rooting for the Suns last year. Okay, let's move this over. So if we're looking at a roster construction standpoint, I think at this point we really cannot be looking at bigs. I think we're exclusively looking at guards and wings from this point forward. Okay, I think I know what we're doing here. So you have Tyler Hero at the 805, and oh my gosh, wings are going to get gross, aren't they? Wings are going to be really gross here. But essentially, we have to look at this roster and we have to say, well, yes, I mean, for a regular 12-team league, you're not excited about it in the slightest. I mean, having Kyrie and LaMelo as your two guards, and that's it. You're panicking at this point, knowing that there's a decent chance that Kyrie Irving misses the majority of the season. But with that being said, even if, I mean, you're looking at it saying that's a 75% likelihood of chance of happening. If there's that 25% chance that Kyrie just goes, okay, yeah, I'll go get vaccinated. I'll play throughout the entire season. There's nobody in this league that has a higher ceiling than this team. So this team has a very low floor, but in this format in particular, as we've already discussed, I'm mainly going to be trying to go through and get the players that have a high ceiling. I think we're actually going to take Marcus Smart just because we do really need a guard here. And if we're going to be looking at Marcus Smart right now, I mean, he is projected to see a steal and a half a game, projected to see 13.5 points a game on top of that. So yeah, a player that I think does make sense for this format in particular. Okay, let's move this down. We can actually shrink this a little bit too. Okay, Harrison Barnes, another player that I was actually considering. I mean, Harrison Barnes looks like a great pick there. If it wasn't for the fact that we just had such a large need at guard, probably would have gone with Harrison Barnes. Just a little bit worried about getting boxed out of the position when we've already seen a considerable amount of these players off the board already. Evan Mobley at the 811. High upside pick, low floor. RJ Barrett at the 502. Also an intriguing name to be on the lookout for. Let me know what y'all are expecting from Kuzma, because obviously he's going to an offense that has a considerable amount of possessions to go to Kuzma himself. I mean, you're not expecting Bradley Beal to literally get everything there. So let me know what y'all are thinking with Kyle Kuzma. Okay, Kyle Anderson at the 812. Okay, so let's get through the 9th rounds. Jordan Clarkson. Okay, let's pull this back up. We can, ooh, god dang. I just need to go ahead and I just need to get this set up for our next draft because, God, this streaming setup's a lot harder. Okay, so Robert Williams, everybody's favorite waiver wire pickup from last season. Looks great in projections, but the problem is, I mean, this is someone that playing a position we don't need. We don't need a big at this point. Robert Covington, that was our guy. I'm so pissed to see Covington go off the board. Now, Devontae Graham, that is someone that I think in a regular format he'd be fine, but in this one I'm probably going to be looking to avoid. Thank God we took a guard with our last pick because now the guard position is looking horrendous. Like, are we really going to be taking Maxey? I don't think we can take Maxey. I don't think we can take Schroeder. Are we really having to take Graham here? I feel like this pick is horrendous. This is 100% a mistake that we made. Thank God we got in this practice draft. Just looking at how this guard position fell off quickly. I mean, going through, let me just hide my screen away. That way we can show this entire draft board. Thank God we got this practice draft in. We'll probably get in another practice draft tomorrow. So make sure you go join Underdog Fantasy if you want some free money to take our money in these drafts. Because now you're seeing that if you're just looking at wings, if you're looking at bigs, there's going to be so much more depth later on in the draft year, especially in this range. Whereas if you're looking at guards, I mean, guards are getting really ugly really quick. Kyrie at the 907, great pick considering the format, considering that you're looking for the highest ceiling possible in the fantasy basketball playoffs. But yeah, you're just seeing this run on guards that you had happen in essentially rounds 4, 5, and 6, leaving nothing beyond that. So, Graham, that was a disgusting pick. I feel like we didn't have an option, though. And that's the problem with just getting boxed out of the position. That's what we were talking about with Marcus Smart, whenever, honestly, I probably would rather have Covington in a vacuum over Marcus Smart. The problem is just feeling the need to get those last guards, or you're going to have nothing there. So, going forward, I think going back to the first round, I think if we're really ever going to be drafting in this range over here, I think it was a smart call to pass on Karl Anthony Towns, knowing that you're getting guys like Miles Turner in the 7th. But the problem is, I think we honestly maybe even want to be bumping up the guards a little bit higher than this. Like, I think at this point, if we're going to be drafting again tomorrow, maybe if we're going to be drafting at the top end, like we're going to be taking Luka, we're going to be taking Harden. We're drafting in the back half of the draft. We'll be trying to double tap the guard position. Maybe we'll try to get someone like Lillard and Beal at the turn. I think that'd be fantastic. Because right now, I mean, I really don't want to be in this situation that we were in again and having to just reach on these guards that we don't really like to begin with. Okay, so now Steven Adams at the 10:02. Schroeder does go there. I mean, Jordan Peele, just a disgusting. Oh my gosh. Okay, Boucher, obviously a player that you'd want. The problem is how many games are we getting? Like you have someone like Montrezl Harrell down all of it. Like you're looking at Oubre versus Harrell. I mean, At this point, do we want Hunter? No, DeAndre Hunter is not going to give you anything on defense. That's kind of what we need to be looking at here. Let's go Chris Boucher. I mean, this is someone that obviously you're looking at saying, well, I mean, we don't have exactly what we want from a health standpoint, but just getting that third big coming in, I think we're probably done at the big position after we get one more guy very late. I just think that out of all these players, he projects to be the best. I mean, it would have been really nice to get someone like PJ Washington falling back to us. Okay, Evan Fournier at the 10:10. Mo Bamba, the only NBA jersey I own with Mo Bamba at the 10:11. I went to UT with Mo Bamba there, and we got to see him play in person. A player that I really like. Obviously, he can have the blocks that are so valuable in this format. Montrezl Harrell at the 10:12. God, I hate what we did in the middle rounds here. Like in this format in particular, with how we're looking at the wing versus guard depth later on, could we even consider possibly going Young over Durant? Just so we can avoid this entire tier at guard and we can instead just get bigs and get wings in this range. Okay, Mitchell Robinson at the 11:02. Obviously, Maxey's a name, but the problem is Maxey actually going to do anything for us here? Probably not. Jamal Murray, like you're seeing some of the ADPs here not necessarily make sense, like Murray all the way up in this range. Keep in mind, this is a player that, I mean, does have that elite ceiling once we get to the fantasy basketball tournament at the end of the season. That is 100% something you need to be just remembering. Kelly Olynyk here, I understand in a regular league, maybe he's appealing, but he's going to have no blocks. You kind of need blocks in this format to be impactful. I think we're probably going to get another forward coming in. I think we're going to get another wing. Most likely getting Hunter. Let me just check out a couple other players in the projections. Yeah, we're just going to take Hunter there. Okay, so now we have 4 guards, 4 wings, and 3 bigs. Keep in mind, in this league in particular, you need to go through, you need to start 2 wings, you need to start 2 guards, and you need to start 1 big, and you have that utility / flex. Okay, so one thing that I want to look at is here with Shafir. I really like the idea of, in this format in particular, whenever you're looking for that high upside for the $50,000 prize at the end, taking these high upside players like Kawhi Leonard, taking them like Jamal Murray, that you're going to have those elite ceilings at the end of the season. But at the same time, you still have to get top 2 in this 12-team league to go through and get entered into that tournament at the end. So if you're going to be starting to stack on these players like Kawhi Leonard and Jamal Murray and you don't have a waiver wire in this format, I think at some point you just have to say, okay, well, we need points at the beginning of the season. We need someone that is going to be playing. That way we can just get to the top 2 mark. I mean, that's like when we're taking Kyrie Irving here. I mean, this is a player that, yeah, has all the risk in the world. And in a regular league, I'm not interested in it at all. But in that format where we're looking for the highest ceiling possible, I think that's probably a nice pick. But when you take Clay, Cade Cunningham, Kawhi Leonard, Jamal Murray, yeah, all these players are guys with pretty high ceilings at the end of the season for that tournament. But the chance that we would actually get to that tournament with Kyrie Irving, and then Kyrie Irving is possibly playing every game by that point, I feel like that's a little bit higher than what you would have if you just stack up all these injured players on the same roster, because you would need some really quality depth coming through for you to be able to get those studs coming in, because you're just going to be missing out on a significant amount of points for the first month of the season. Okay, so now you got Malik Beasley at the 1202. Now let's switch this around really quick so we can go through and we can look at our next pick. Okay, so I think we can honestly almost go any way that we want to here. I think it would be nice getting a wing or getting a guard coming in. I actually think Larry Nance was going to be our guy. Okay, that definitely sucks. I was hoping that we were going to get Larry Nance. Okay, Precious here, you're going to get rebounds. You're going to get steals. I think we're just going to go Bledsoe. Just continue to add some depth at the guard position. I mean, a position that we really need depth at. I mean, his ADP is 121. We're getting him at pick 140. So yeah, let's just add some more guard depth, especially if we're just going to be building our roster around a lot of these really talented wings. I mean, we have Kevin Durant, we have Tobias Harris, we have OG Anunoby. I mean, we also have DeAndre Hunter. So I think we're kind of fine at the wing position, especially knowing that we're most likely going to have a big in our utility spot with this format and this scoring more times than not. So yeah, I think that right now our priority is probably to go through and build around the guard. I mean, with Precious, a big thing is you just have to be viewing him and saying, while yes, he has a high ceiling at the beginning part of the season, and he can be someone that's fantastic in a regular fantasy basketball league. I mean, here in particular in this league where you're not going to have the chance to sell high actually before you get Pascal coming back in. And at the same time, I mean, we're just trying to stack our team up for the highest upside at the end of the season as possible. He's not going to make a lot of sense in this format in particular, just because you'd be looking at this format in particular saying, well, yeah, the production's going to be there at the beginning of the season. It won't necessarily be there at the end of the year. Okay. Now Cole Anthony at the 12-11. Was looking at Cole Anthony for a second. But a big thing with Anthony, I hate to keep going back to it, but this scoring format's a little bit unique. And you're not going to get any steals. You're not going to get any blocks. I mean, and at the same time, compared to Bledsoe should be getting you at least a steal a game. Will be getting you a better mark when it comes to the assists. He'll be very similar in points scored. Okay, so Kevin Huerter at the 12-12. Terrence Mann. I've not heard the name Terrence Mann in a while. Yeah, I don't necessarily know what I think about that man pick. Okay, so now Now I think we can be looking at wings. I think even though we just talked down on them, I think I can agree with y'all here whenever we're going to be looking at Precious. I mean, just because if this will be a player that just makes an impact at the beginning of the year at the least, Brandon Clark here also looks really appealing. I think we may go Clark. No, let's go Precious. Let's not overthink it. Let's not overthink it. We already have a ton of ceiling on this roster in particular for the end of the year. Maybe we just need to focus in on getting some production right now. So, yeah, let's take him at the 13.05. Brandon Clark was really appealing, though. Otto Porter goes at the 13.06. I mean, I'm assuming that you get more money. I mean, you get more minutes for him until we get Klay Thompson back later in the year. Brook Lopez at the 13.07. Gary Trent at the 13.08. Let me go through and let's look at the roster construction for some of these teams. Let's look at how many players at each position they are currently rostering. So right now, it looks like Inem Modor has loaded up with guards. I mean, right now, he took 2 wings at the top of the draft with Tatum, LeBron. And then from there, he's just loaded up with a ton of depth at the guard position. He has SGA, D'Angelo Russell, Tyler Hero, Jordan Poole, Norman Powell, Will Barton, and Gary Trent. I mean, just loading up on guards in the second half. At big, he has Ayton, Jaren Jackson, Robert Williams in a league where you only need to start 1. I think you're probably feeling comfortable with what you have there. But yeah, just loading up on a ton of depth at the guard position. And then you also have this team that we really wanted to make sure that we were monitoring as we went through this draft because clearly he knows what's going on. And he's taken 3 bigs just as well. I mean, he waited a little bit later than we had where he takes Kristaps Porzingis, Jacob Podol, and Steven Adams. Yes, a very interesting roster construction. Looks like there are not that many teams that are unbalanced. Looks like every team is relatively balanced except this team here who is just loaded up on a ton of guards and has sacrificed wing depth, but he actually went through and took some of those wings at the very top of the draft, so it didn't necessarily matter that much. Okay. So Thomas Bryant here at the 14.01. Mason Plumlee at the 14.02. And we're probably going to end this live stream in the 14th round here, just because I know the majority of drafts that y'all are playing in, y'all are only going 14 rounds. So I know y'all don't really need to see the 15th. Y'all don't need to see the 16th, just based on the idea that y'all also have a waiver wire. I mean, these last 2 spots in your roster that y'all are going to be just going through and churning in. A lot of y'all aren't even going to be going this deep. So I'll make this pick in the 14th round, but I actually have to record some fantasy basketball videos in just a second. So yeah, we're kind of cutting it close now that it's 1 p.m. So let's make this last selection and then we will go. Let me know if y'all want me to do this again. Please make sure y'all go use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. Make a $10 deposit. Get our 2021 draft guide. At the same time, make sure you're going through and getting that max deposit bonus with promo code FLOCK when you go through the link in the description, when you go through the link in the live chat. When you get that max deposit bonus, you can go and pretty much just get in some leagues here with no risk at all, and you can practice for your own fantasy basketball drafts. Now here we have 5 guards, 5 wings, and 3 bigs. I think we can kind of go any direction that we want. Monte Morris, let's see what the most recent... Actually, I don't even care about Monte Morris in this format. Al Horford would be intriguing, but we already have more than enough depth at the big position. TJ McConnell's very interesting here. Am I missing something? Like, why is TJ McConnell still available? Unless the projections I'm looking at are way off, which they could be, but I had a lot of success last year with these projections. Looks like TJ McConnell is just fantastic here. Yeah, we're going to take a 6th guard. Okay, but yeah, that should be it for the live stream. Thank you so much, of course, for everybody coming out, supporting the channel. I have to end this, go record some fantasy basketball videos. But of course, if you want to see some more, make sure you let me know. And most importantly, go use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. Get a max deposit bonus. Get our 2021 draft guide for only a $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy. Get in some practice drafts this year. I mean, I explained exactly why this is the best place to be doing your practice drafts at the beginning